everybody, I'm Tommy, and you are on the Love Boat. Let's see if we can get through this thing, people. I've been having all kinds of internet things. That's why we're a little bit late. My signal is weak. Hopefully I get a 5x5. I'm not going to say hi to people because I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do a signal, so we're going to get right into this. Do we live in a two-tier justice system? If the answer isn't yes, then you don't pay any attention to anything, and I'm not being mean. It's just kind of the way it is. Recently, we've seen a lot of really weird stuff come out in the news. When Trump was running for office, one of the things that he liked to talk about a lot was Kristen Saucier. This is a kid that took pictures inside a nuclear sub. When he found out that he was in trouble for this, he destroyed all the evidence. He made a bad decision, right? He destroyed the evidence, destroyed his phone, his laptop. He did what Hillary Clinton did, right? With a hell of a lot less really vital information. He took a couple of selfies inside a sub, but he ended up spending a year in federal prison. Hillary Clinton walks free. This is one example of a very serious, flawed system. There's a company called Reality Winner, leaked classified NSA documents, got 5 years in federal prison. James Clapper and John Brennan did the exact same thing. Nothing. The worst example of this that you're going to find anywhere is probably the disparity between Hunter Biden and Paul Manafort. Literally, these guys got charged with the exact same crimes, financial crimes and working as a foreign agent, getting paid for doing things in another country when you're not supposed to, especially if you're tied into government. It's not something that they prosecute people for very often because it's done so frickin' often. It's just accepted among the elites. Hello, Audra. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Hello, Kellyanne. Kristen Melinda, good to see you. Brock Bandy, what's happening? But Paul Manafort spends years in prison. Hunter Biden, nada. In fact, he makes videos now telling people how to make crack, right? And they're talking about whether or not he might be the new face of the Democratic Party. We live in a two-tier justice system. And you know what? If the people who are in government are too much to think about, I understand. I really do. Because we just kind of assume that those people have the ability to do whatever they want. So let's do this real quickly, shall we? This is a cat named Vitali. You guys might know this guy. He's a YouTuber. That is him in the Philippines. You'll notice he's wearing a hat that kind of looks like maybe it should be on a cop. That's because he took it off a cop and they arrested him. Finally, this is a cat that has been going around the world, offending people in different cultures as a way to make a living and got filthy freaking rich off of it. Was living in $1 million place down in Florida and decided that one day he was going to get busy on some mushrooms. This was during the COVID-19 crisis. That's right. I said COVID, not C plus math. COVID, pandemic. During that time, he decided he was going to take a heroic dose of mushrooms, right? And I'm not saying that as in he's a hero. That's what they call massive amounts of mushrooms when you take it. Most people will take 1 gram, 2 grams, even up to 5. It's a pretty serious trip. It's a dissociative drug, right? Psilocybe cubensis. Dissociative drugs make you trip. They actually make you blur the lines between what's real and what's fake. And often they can lead you to do some really dumb things. I talked about my friend who stepped out of a window on acid, ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But those kind of drugs make you do some stupid things. He took 60 grams, according to him. I don't know if I believe him. It's a hell of a lot of mushrooms, right? You're looking at a couple of ounces plus. But let's say that that's the truth. He took 60 grams of mushrooms and then decided to go outside. And the first person he came across was a woman who he beat the bark off of. And I got some photos of it. I don't feel comfortable showing them. This woman was beat. If I got into a fist fight with a guy and I punched him until I couldn't make a fist anymore, that's what this person looked like, except he did it to a woman. What do you think he got for time? Anyone want to take a shot in the dark at what kind of time they gave Vitali for doing this? Because I know a hell of a lot of people doing a hell of a lot of time for assaulting people. It is usually considered something that you can't make a deal on, right? You can make a deal on drugs. You can make a deal on things where you've broken laws that don't violate somebody else's civil rights. This is not one of those cases. He went out there and did this to a chick until she was unrecognizable. By the way, a big girl, about 135 pounds. And you saw a picture of this guy. He's a steroided out monster. He's huge, right? Beat the ever-loving piss out of this woman, pardon my French. He didn't do any time. Now, if he wanted to get a deal made. So he's a convicted felon, but he's not going to go to prison. Didn't work out that way. First of all, he's a foreign national. He's in here on a green card. He's from Russia. He has made a fortune being an asshole on YouTube. One of his favorite stunts was to go up with a briefcase and handcuff the briefcase to a stranger, right? And say, there's a bomb inside, and run as fast as he could in the opposite direction. Funny, right? You can see that. That's funny. You wouldn't believe the audience that this man amassed. You wouldn't believe the money that this man amassed doing this. Millions of dollars. Sponsorships from huge companies. Why? Because nobody cares anymore, right? They watch the train wreck. They watch the people on the side of the road dying because it's interesting. So Vitali cuts a deal for no jail time. And that's fine. If you can work that out, whatever. He's also not a felon. They went in and paid this girl enough money where all charges were dropped. You shouldn't be able to drop charges like that. The state should step in and go, that's fine and dandy, right? She doesn't want to press charges. That's fine and dandy. But you broke the law. So what you're telling me is if you got enough money, you can go out in the street and beat the crap out of a woman, right? That's a two-tier justice system. Am I wrong? Let's get a look at some more cats. First of all, this is him again. It's a big dude, right? Look at the hood on that dude. Dude spent a lot of time working out. This is what he looks like today, right? Not quite as big, is he? You know what we call that in prison? We call that sucked up, right? Sucked up. That's because currently he is in a Filipino jail. And he's not getting fed and he's not getting juice, right? These days they don't call it juice. I guess the kids today call it gear. He's not sticking needles in his ass to make himself larger anymore. And that's what he looks like. Now, he is in the process of trying to buy citizenship in a third country because the United States said, hell no, we don't want you back, right? He is a green card holder in the US, but he is not, he wasn't born here. He was born in Russia. So in theory, Russia is nice. Your cat's on one. In theory, Russia has to take him back, right? No, Russia doesn't work that way. Russia said, we're not taking him. So currently, he's trying to buy citizenship in another country. And believe it or not, this is a pretty easy process if you're rich, right? Speaking of which, Julian Assange bought citizenship in my country, right? In Ecuador. You can buy citizenship in countries. You can come into a country, drop enough money, and they'll just give you a passport. And a lot of them, including the United States of America, for the record. So Vitali's trying to buy a citizenship somewhere else. The good news in this story is he's been ripped off multiple times. People are saying, yeah, you can buy a citizenship here, but you're going to have to pay in crypto. And his mother has been sending money all over the world, allegedly, and getting ripped off each time. She's made some videos where she said that she's been taken for large amounts of cash, and she weeps and asks for more money. And you know what? Fans will give it to him because this guy, for whatever reason, seems to be untouchable. Here's him in Egypt. You know what he's doing right there? He's climbing the Great Pyramid at Giza. Think he got permission to do that? They have a law in that country that you cannot climb onto any pyramid. It's not allowed. Now, you can ask for permission, and he did. And he went to Egypt, and he went around and had a trip where he was supposed to be sort of an ambassador. He actually allegedly got paid to go and do this to try to boost tourism. But part of the deal was they said they would let him climb the pyramid. And then at the end, they said, no, we're not going to do it. So he went back later, gave a big FU literally to the president of the country. What did he get? A couple of days in jail in Egypt. Then he made a video afterwards and said, you know what? The more I break the law, the more money I make. He said, the moral of this story is you're not going to get rich doing the right thing. Think about this. You're not going to get rich doing the right thing. This literally came out of dude's mouth. The good news is this. They're changing laws in the Philippines because of this jackass. They're literally changing laws concerning streaming. See, he screwed up in this last one. He said, nobody likes me anymore. And he walked by a restaurant that had a big fan out in front of it. And he said, check it out. It's my last fan. And he picked it up. Theft is not taken in the Philippines the way it is in the United States, where you get 35 tries at it. He grabbed this fan, carried it home, and it was massive, by the way. It wasn't a small fan. This thing was huge. It was on a long cast iron pole. It had a big base. Even this good-sized steroided out monster had a very difficult time carrying it back to the hotel. He went into malls and grabbed things and walked off. He went up to get a virtual reality setup with the glasses and all that. He put it on and ran away from the person. You can watch one video after another of this man being obnoxious. This is how he makes a living. He's not the only one. There's a guy named Ice Poseidon. Do me a favor and put a deuce in the chat if you've heard of a guy named Ice Poseidon. I don't follow these people, right? I don't enjoy this kind of content. Cringe content, right? Renee B says, look at the Tate brothers. They just postured by imprisoning him. You know something? Here's the deal with the Tate brothers. How did these guys get rich? They're digital pimps. They find women, they get them to do OnlyFans kind of content, and then pay them a ludicrously small amount of money while they rip off people for their life savings, right? These women, he trained them. He taught them how to say the right things to get these people. And you know what they were saying in most cases? You got to help me get out of this. I'm looking for the guy who is going to take me away from all of this. And they're, computer nerds with tons of money that are watching these women get undressed and do things, and for the camera. And they believed that if they just sent these women enough money, that they were going to end up with them for life. Then they make videos bragging about how well these women were trained and how they would suck hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the accounts of these men, giggling the entire time. They're digital pimps. And then he goes on a show and says, hey, you know what? Picture me. He goes, I'm out here and I'm having sex with a 16 or 15 or 16-year-old girl. This is literally what he said. And he goes, I'm sorry, whatever the age of consent is. I'm sorry, what? Dirtbags. And these people rise to prominence. All of these figures, these people that are celebrated, two-tier justice systems for every last one of them. Well, not for Vitali. Finally, this guy's pushed it enough. Here's Ice Poseidon, the guy I was just talking about. He thought it would be really funny to do a lap dance for his girlfriend, who, with all due respect, looks like she's probably done a few lap dances in her time as well. But this is in Thailand. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how in hell can you get in trouble at a place like Bangkok? You're not the only person that thinks that. But he did this in a hotel. The owner of the hotel took umbrage, right? Was not particularly pleased with this and pressed charges. And this guy ends up having to make an apology video, but of course escapes out of the country, right? No harm, no foul. These people are getting rich by being obnoxious. These people are getting rich by absolutely being dirtbags. This is a guy named Jack Dougherty. You probably have heard of him. Jack Dougherty was an influencer, made a ton of money by following the Tate model. He trained women to do the exact same thing that Tate was doing, and he set these girls up with a OnlyFans style setup, and then paid them pennies on the dollar compared to what they were making, what they were bringing in rather. Then he decided to buy a McLaren and crash it intentionally, because that'll get you a lot of views. Then as his career started to go down, he started to crash other things. He started to go out of his way to just be offensive in every way possible. And this is becoming a genre. The king of this genre is a guy named Johnny Somali. This is Johnny Somali. See, my computer is really slow tonight. Let's see if this will work. That's Johnny Somali. You can't see the statue behind him, but I'm going to show it to you in a moment. This is in South Korea. And I talked about this on another show. They have statues that are dedicated to the women who, during the Korean War, were forced into sexual slavery. They were prisoners of war, and they were used as recreation for the North Koreans, meaning that they would put these girls in a room and one after another, soldiers would go in and have sex with them, obviously against their will. And there are statues throughout the city to honor those women. He goes up there and Diddy style dumps one bottle after another of baby oil on him while he does lap dances for these statues. This is some of the most offensive stuff you will ever see in your life. However, this is celebrated. That's another one of the statues. This one is in a dress. He did the same thing with this statue where he did lap dances on it and then proceeded to stick his hand up the statue's skirt, sniffing his fingers afterwards. This is one of the most reprehensible people on planet Earth, but this is not the first country he's done this in. He went to Japan and offended them. He would walk up to people in Japan and yell Hiroshima in their face as loud as they could, laughing hysterically and walking off. Got arrested. They're trying to get arrested. Like Vitali said, I may get thrown in jail, but when I come out, any video I do will get 2 or 3 million views. And 2 or 3 million views will bring you sponsors, because we live in a society where if you can get 2 or 3 million views, we don't care if you're slapping children in the face or urinating on a nun, because you're getting tons of people to watch what you're doing. So we'd be more than happy to pay you to put something on your t-shirt. This is the world that we live in. And that's fine and dandy. If you want to be one of those people who goes and watch this. And here's the sad thing. If you go to Johnny Somali content and you actually watch it. Now, I'm not a fan. It's not something I'm going to do. But to research this, I watched a couple of them for about 3 minutes. But what I really wanted to do was look at the chat. And there's 2 kinds of people in the chat. And one kind, which makes up probably 80% of the audience, goes in there and calls him a dirtbag. What kind of scumbag are you? Who raised you? How possibly can you do these things? Your parents must be very ashamed of you. Pay attention real briefly. I'm not sure whether or not the entire audience of social media is stupid, but if you're there leaving 95 comments over the course of the 30 minutes that he's live, you're getting him paid. You understand? The algorithm doesn't understand that you're calling him a dirtbag. The algorithm just sees engagement. It's like the people that send me emails and go, oh man, I watched this guy that makes terrible content about you. I'm just doing it to see if he says anything that you ought to know about. What you're doing is keeping him in business. You understand? We live in a world today where relevance is now listed on the table of things that you need, as far as like shelter and food and water. Relevance, right? If you can't get it, you'll grab a weapon and fire into a crowd somewhere, because for a brief period of time, people will know who you are. It is absolutely disturbing. You're right. It's all about views. Renee B says they don't care. It's about views. Johnny Somali took it to a whole new level. He would carry a little boombox, very loud, and give his audience an opportunity to be a scumbag without having to show up and show your face. So people would pay $50 in a super chat or $100 in a super chat, and then they would curse at children in the language of the country that he was in, or make provocative statements saying that he wanted to have sex with kids, but he would be saying it in South Korean. Lovely. The South Korean government has Johnny Somali. First, they put him in jail, and now they've restricted his ability to leave. He cannot leave the country, and he is looking at doing some time. And you want to hear something horrible? Because this isn't something I say very often. I hope this dude gets a buttload of time in prison, because a message has to go out that this is not a way to make money. You can't just go out and trash someone's culture. You know why I'm doing this show? I had an email where somebody asked me, give me the name again, Johnny. I got a block on it. No, I mean, what's it called? Influencer tourism. Yeah. So I got an email that somebody said, yeah, I don't need to know the name of the person. Somebody said, so this is just influencer tourism, us being in Ecuador. You will never see me pick on the society of this country. I love the society of this country. I'm sorry, I do. One of the reasons I love the society here is because they would never allow something like this to happen. Wouldn't happen. And I find myself saying 5 times a day, that would never happen here. That would never happen here. That would never happen here. Last night I did a show where I talked about going to rehab, and I talked about talking to these people. When I was introduced, they said, Tommy does what he does on YouTube. No one there knew what YouTube was. How's that? I'm not joking. I'm not saying this for effect. 32 men in the room, none of them had heard of YouTube. That's a beautiful thing. I'm sorry, it really is. That's a beautiful thing. It blew my brother away. It literally blew Johnny away. Like, we walked away and he said, where could you find 32 people on earth that don't know what YouTube is? Right? When I said to them, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people praying for you around the world. They did this number. I mean, they were excited as hell, but it was a concept that they couldn't understand, because social media here doesn't mean what it does in other places. Now, there are a lot of people who are here. Renee B, you're a very kind human being. But you know what? That's our goal. No lie. We would like to be an asset in this country. I love the people here, but I was offended as hell by the email. And I actually had to look up what influencer tourism was. Now, I'll tell you what, when I first heard the term, I was this close to emailing back and saying, sort of, that's kind of what we're doing. And then Johnny was like, oh, hell no, bro. Do you know what that is? That's Johnny Somali. And I was like, oh, no way. Influencer tourism means going to someone else's culture and trashing it for views. Watching Vitali walk up to women who were sitting and just having lunch at restaurants and screaming as loud as they could in their ear, because that's entertainment. But back to Johnny Somali. He has this boombox. And one of the things that he did when he was in Japan was they played the air raid sirens, right, in the subway. These are the sirens that they hear when they find out that they may be getting nuked again, that missiles might be coming from China. This isn't funny. I mean, not only is it not funny, it's the equivalent of coming to America and joking about slavery, or joking about anything from the past that trashed somebody's culture, right? Holocaust jokes. Johnny Somali went to Israel and he went to the Wailing Wall. And if you've never seen that, they're one of their holiest sites, and people go there and they pray, and people from other religions, not just Jews that go there. My father made several trips to Israel, loved it. But he went to the Wailing Wall and he wrote on a piece of paper, I pray that my son never does heroin again. And he rolled it up and he stuck it in the wall. That's what people do. They put prayers there. Johnny Somali brought pictures of his favorite Jews, among them Jeffrey Epstein. And then he went up while everybody watched live and said, Epstein, that's my favorite guy, right? And shoved that in the Wailing Wall. The disrespect that these people get paid for. And then comes the two-tier justice system. Because let me make you a promise. If I walked out today, anywhere, here, the United States, anywhere else, and I punched a woman in the face until she was unrecognizable, you guys would never see me again. I would never get out of prison. Now, I have a record. If Johnny did that, he wouldn't get out of prison either, because he wouldn't have $1 million. Now, I don't know that he paid the woman $1 million. I don't. But I've seen him discuss this on 3 different podcasts today. And in every one of the guys said, how is it you don't have a felony? You know what his answer was? I bet you can guess. He said, a deal was made that I'm not allowed to talk about. Let me translate that for you. I get paid a lot of money to do what I do. So we offered her $1 million to drop all of the charges. And the prosecutor sits there doing this one. Then we have a broken system. If you can pay a victim to drop charges, we have a broken system. What you're saying is the rich can do whatever they want. The poor cannot. The middle class cannot. You have to be disgustingly wealthy. And how do you get disgustingly wealthy in today's day and age? Well, you could work really hard, or you could listen to people like Vitali, who will tell you that you're not going to get rich following the rules. Break the law. It pays. Yeah, you're going to go to jail, but when you get out, your videos are going to get millions of views. Now, I bring these people up because they're in my line of work. They're something that most people on YouTube can relate to, right? Johnny Somali got out of Japan. He was deported, but he spent about 2 or 3 weeks in jail, and he was fined 200,000 yen, which sounds really impressive, but that's about $1,400. You got any idea how much money he made being charged $1,400 for the right to make millions? I'm not joking. And not just from views, right? Because he's been kicked off of every platform now. I mean, oh, and he does get his butt beat constantly. Guys walk up to him in the street and punch him in the face. But he's hoping for that. You understand? These people are hoping for that. I was going to put up the picture of Vitali's arrest photo when he beat the girl. His pupils are this big. Unfortunately, in the process of loading up these images, the computer decided it didn't want to play with me anymore. Developing country. But I want to tell you something. The reason that I bring up the YouTubers is because it's so easily relatable. But let me tell you about a guy named Barack Obama. It is now to the point where this is beyond debate. Barack Obama was absolutely aware of the fact that there was no Russia collusion. So if you're a person out there right now who thinks maybe our president during the last time he was in office colluded with Russia, that didn't happen. Complete and utter BS. And they knew it was BS. It was a concept that Hillary Clinton came up with in the Javits Center right after she lost the election, and she said it in front of 2 journalists who wrote about it. It's a fact. You can read it. The journalists who were going to write about her triumphant presidency, right, her smashing the glass ceiling, instead sat there slack-jawed, right, beside themselves, listening to this woman said, here's how we're going to reframe this. He stole the election. We're going to say that this presidency was illegitimate. And you know what? You want to sell that line of BS? That's fine. But for the next 4 years, our country ground to a halt while we spent hundreds, literally hundreds of millions of dollars investigating a hoax. And the previous president was driving it. Barack Obama knew it was a hoax. That's called sedition. You realize that? If you try to take out a sitting president, that is seditious. Article 2 of the Constitution, you can get killed for that. You think they're going to prosecute him? No way in hell. No way in hell. Hillary Clinton won't be prosecuted. None of these people will be prosecuted. Let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein's case. You're not going to believe this, but this is a true story. You're not going to believe this. But in the last 2 days, I talked to a doctor who has a patient, and he said, HIPAA. He's like, I can't even tell you this, because he said, what do you do for a living? And it kind of, the person, it wasn't me. I can't, this is a terrible story. I shouldn't be able to tell it. Here's what it comes down to. There's a doctor who has a patient who was one of the 1,000 victims. And people say all the time in my comment section, why don't they just bring the 1,000 victims in front of Congress and talk to them? The number of them that have been paid staggering amounts of money, we don't hear about any of them. We're screaming for justice. A lot of them, if not all of them, got a ton of money because money makes everything go away. But the doctor said this woman has got a really big settlement. 6 digits, right, is $1 million. He said this woman got a 7-digit settlement. Now that could be 10 million, but it could be all the way up to 99 million. Not exactly sure what she got. But these people all got paid. That's great. I want them to get paid. They got that coming. But that doesn't mean justice was served. Because if you were poor and you did what Jeffrey Epstein did, you would never get out of prison. And you would do prison time where every single day you'd be looking over your shoulder because you would get punched in the face at every prison you went to. The second they found out what you were, you'd get the crap beat out of you. Then you'd get sent to another prison. And as soon as they found out what you were, you'd get the crap beat out of you. And that's how you would spend the rest of your life. Instead, he got to do weekends, right? In basically a Hilton set up for him down at the jail. Somebody stepped in on that case. We talked about it and said, we're not prosecuting this man. Now the deal is out, right? I read parts of it because so much of it was redacted, but now most of that deal is out. And it literally says, you and any co-defendant from now till the end of time can't be prosecuted, which means as America, we yanked the rug out from underneath Ghislaine Maxwell. You can hate her. I hate her. But you know what? She had a deal. They went back on it. Never should have been a deal, but why go back on it if you already did it? Maybe you're embarrassed that you made the deal in the first place. Well, guess what? You did make the deal. You were willing to sacrifice 1,000 chicks for whatever reason, right? Because it was for the greater good or whatever you come up with, or it's going to embarrass too many of our friends, or there are too many billionaires on the list, right? God forbid Bill Gates is found out to be what he is. 2-tier justice system? Well, having $100 billion doesn't hurt. Bill Gates can do whatever the hell he wants. And he's dying, folks. You know that, right? Bill Gates is dying. He has a private jet that is a flying hospital. He travels around in a van that has a doctor in it. His house has a hospital suite in it. He's dying. And he's terrified of death. Bill, you ought to be, bud. You ought to be. I promise you, people, that man isn't going to have fun in the afterlife. What's that dollar bill that he paid to Jeffrey Epstein? What was that bet about? The prince, that Prince Andrew, has finally come out and said, yeah, she was given to me as a gift by Jeffrey Epstein. Funny how the truth, right? Over time, she comes out a little bit more and a little bit more. Giuffre was given to him as a gift. Who else was she given to as a gift? Alan Dershowitz? Because she said Alan Dershowitz laid on top of her too. 17-year-old girl having to sleep with these scumbags. Then she changed her story. right? Who scared the crap out of her enough to go, oh no, you know what? Maybe it wasn't him. Trust me, if somebody raped you, you're probably not going to forget who it was. And I was dumb enough to go, oh no, he said, that he only flew there with his wife. There's no evidence of any of that. You can look at the flight logs. His name's on that plane. His wife's not. He didn't fly there with his wife. He's a liar. Two-tiered system of justice, right? And that cat knows the law, right? By the way, if by some chance you're famous and you get caught doing what Epstein does, there's no chance in hell you're hiring anybody but Alan Dershowitz. He's the go-to guy if you get caught with a 15-year-old. It's kind of his wheelhouse. That should tell you all you need to know about the dude. I didn't realize this stuff, right? Because they don't talk about it. I'm not sure why. Maybe he's part of that class that can do whatever they want. But as I started researching this, it is absolutely a stone cold fact that if you want to research this, you're going to find out that that cat can do whatever he wants. He's part of that class. James O'Keefe from Project Veritas just uncovered a multi-million-dollar NGO contract scheme to transport 500,000 undocumented children. Let me tell you something. If James O'Keefe found it, I believe it. How's that? Try finding something that James O'Keefe has done that has been proven to not be true. You will not find it. Project Veritas is incredible. For real. If I had started doing this when I was younger, I would have wanted to grow up to be him. James O'Keefe is incredible. Think her husband's family also had some leverage over him? Yeah, you know something? It's disgusting. The leverage on all of this, right? It's disgusting. But I have come to believe, folks, that we're so far gone that there's no hope of coming back. I love the American people more than I love anybody. It's the truth. The greatest people I've met have been Americans. We are, American people, are the most generous people on earth. I'm not sure if you know that, but Americans donate more money to charity and things like that than any place in the world. And people will say, oh, it's for tax write-offs. You know how many other ways you can burn tax write-offs? Connor, thank you, man. Glad that you're here. You know how many other ways, honestly, you know how many tax shelters, how many ways you can do this? They give because Americans are giving people. If there's a natural disaster anywhere in the world, America is going to start handing cash over. And I don't mean the country, although they will, which is odd because nowhere in the Constitution does it give the president the right to come out and say, I'm sending $10 billion to Haiti, where the Clintons already have a foundation set up and they're going to siphon so much of that money off of the top. Two-tier justice system. The Clinton Foundation donates less money to charity than Johnny and I do. Believe that. Oh, they bring a hell of a lot in, but none of it ends up in the hands of people. All of that money for Haitian relief, they put 3 double-wide trailers down there. Research it. See if I'm lying. We're talking about the most evil people on planet Earth. I love the American people. I don't love the American government. I'm terrified of the American government, and I think that they literally may be the most evil group on earth. And it's sad because people run with the intent of draining the swamp. And I'm not necessarily just talking about the guy that's there now. I'm talking about people who decide that they want to be a congressman from the 5th district of whatever, and they really want to go up there, right, and change the world. And then they get there and people go, oh, no, kid, that's not how it works. But on the bright side, you can do insider trading because what Martha Stewart went to federal prison for, you can legally do as a senator 365 days a year. Ask Nancy Pelosi. And by the way, I pick on her because she's the best example out there. But they're guilty on both sides of the aisle, finding somebody that didn't walk into office worth $1 million and walk out worth 20, making $300,000 a year. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Unless we just allow these people to ride roughshod across laws that the rest of us would go to prison for. It's called the Act of 1933. I know this because it was one of my favorite hustles. Back in the day, I used to do something called reverse shell mergers. I would make myself the president of publicly traded companies. I'm not even joking. But you would find a defunct company. Let's say a company went out of business in 1929, and the stock's been laying there dead forever. If you look at a stock certificate, it will say par value, 00, there's a decimal point, and then like 9 zeros and a penny. And you're going, what is that? It's like 1/1000th of a penny or something, but it has value. And that's essential because it means that the stock doesn't go away even if the company dies. So you go in and you buy this defunct company from the largest stockholder, and then you start buying all of the stock that you can. And you don't have to file 4 times a year and tell the world what the assets versus liabilities of the company are. It's called filing 10Qs. You have to do that 4 times a year so that the world can look at it and go, I don't think I want to invest in this company. But if you're a company that's been around since before 1933, you're not affected by those same laws. You're called grandfathered in. So reverse shell mergers are one of the sleaziest ways that you can manufacture money. If you control all the stock, you have a friend of yours, call a broker and say, I want to buy money in Scoville and Scoville, right? I want to buy stock. Give me 2,000 shares. And your stockbroker calls you back and says, nobody will fill the order. I'm sorry. Well, then put it in for $1 a share instead of 50 cents. And he calls you back and says, no one will fill the order. Okay, put it in for $2 a share. Now we're at a dollar amount we like. So we fill the order. Now the stock's trading at $2 a share. We got 200 million shares of it times $2 a share. Now we can go to a bank and start borrowing money against the stock. This is legal, by the way. It's unethical to beat shit, but you can legally get away with doing this stuff. It happens every single day. You can go and look at pinksheet.com, and everything you see on there, you can look to see how the company started. 9 out of 10 will be a reverse shell merger. And if you think drug dealers are sleazy, get a look at the guys that do reverse shell mergers for a living. I felt more comfortable around heroin dealers. But it's a 2-tiered system, you see. If you get caught doing one of those, you'll pay the fine. But let's talk about the worst ever of the 2-tiered justice system. Because if you think the ones that I've brought up so far have been awful, I have not even started. The worst all is the Sackler family. The people that invented advertising for drugs. First drug ever advertised for was diazepam, right? Name brand Valium. She goes running for the shelter of her mother's little helper. Remember that song? Yeah, Mother's Little Helper, the 5 milligram yellow Valium. And though she's not really ill, there's a little yellow pill. The Sacklers advertised that drug. First one ever advertised. How much money do you think you have to keep sliding to congressmen for their re-election campaigns to ensure that you can keep advertising drugs? Why do you advertise something people can't buy? You can't buy Valium. You can't walk into a pharmacy and say, hey, give me some Valium. You got to go to a doctor, and the doctor has to write you a prescription. So why would you advertise for something that you have to have a prescription for? Because we changed medicine right around the time that started to happen. And they didn't advertise a lot of drugs, you see, because you used to have to list all of the side effects. And most drugs have 6,000 side effects. And by the time you're done listing them, always one of which is, it's going to kill you. No one's going to buy this drug. So lobbyists got them so that you only got to pick 4. You pick 4 of the side effects and list them in the advertisement. God bless the Sacklers. Do you know that they are in the, are you ready? The Pharmaceutical Advertising Hall of Fame. There's a Drug Advertising Hall of Fame. That's got to make you feel good. Proud to be an American, huh? They do it also in New Zealand. There are, 196 nations or something like that? 2 of them allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise directly to people through television and print ads. Us in the United States and New Zealand. God bless America. Reverse mortgages for elderly people are disgusting too. Companies buy the payouts. Yeah, the reverse mortgages for elderly people are tough. It really is. Now, here's the thing. In 1 in 100 cases, it's an absolutely fantastic deal. But the other 99, you're stealing a house from an elderly person. But it's legal. There's somebody somewhere always looking for the next hustle. And you know how? They're celebrated. But the Sacklers are kings. Because when they rolled out OxyContin, they put out we've heard me talk about this 100 times, but the Porter-Glick study, which wasn't a study, said that you had a 4% chance of getting addicted to OxyContin. 4%. So you give 100 people all the OxyContin that they want, and only 4 out of 100 are going to get addicted. Problem is, the number was closer to 20% who got addicted. The 300 people a day who are dying of drug overdoses are buying fake Percocet 30s which, by the way, is just an OxyContin 30. See, once the Sackler family, they had the planned rollout the entire time. They knew exactly what was going to happen, and they wanted to get as much money as they can. Here's how it works in the United States of America. We allow you to recoup the amount of money that it cost to research and develop the drug. If not, nobody would do research and development. Sounds like a good idea, but they took a drug, Percodan, oxycodone, and then they added a time release system to it called their Contin, C-O-N-T-I-N, time release system. They didn't need to develop the time release system. It was already developed. It was developed for morphine sulfate, Contin. MS Contin was the first drug they did, right? But they couldn't sell that to the general public because people thought it's what you give to people who were dying. So they needed a new drug. So they took one of the most popular painkillers on planet Earth, Percodan, Percocet, that family, oxycodone. Great painkiller, by the way. And I'm not saying that from a junkie standpoint. I mean medically. Fantastic painkiller. Pretty low threshold for addiction compared to others. And it has a built-in anti-inflammatory, so it does actually treat pain and at the same time treat some of the cause of the root pain. It's an excellent painkiller. But they took it, and they took it from a 5 milligram dose to an 80 milligram dose. And they put the Contin release system, which is just a coating on the outside of the pill. So the junkies shaved the outside of the pill off. And now what you have is 80 milligrams of Percodan in one shot. They knew people were going to do that. You could snort it, you could smoke it, and you could inject it. They didn't do anything to make sure that couldn't happen. They knew how to, but they didn't because they wanted that to happen. They wanted this thing. They started to reward the salespeople who could sell the most of this stuff. Guys were making videos. You can look this up. Guys were making videos joking about how to make the most money selling this stuff. Pill mills were writing prescriptions, some of them at the rate of 9 a minute. No lie. There were pill mills that were writing prescriptions 9 a minute. How's that possible, folks? You have to see a patient. You have to talk to a patient. But over the course of the time when they came in and investigated them, 9 a minute. They enslaved the entire country on OxyContin. And then they said, nope, you're not getting any more. And the Sackler family sent their representatives to Congress and say, hey, we made a mistake on this. Whatever you do, don't let anybody make generic forms of this drug. In other words, give us the monopoly on selling this for a little bit longer. And they went back and reformulated it. Trust and believe they had already reformulated it. But the better question would be this: why do you need time to recoup the initial research and development for something that was already made? Percodan came out in Germany before World War II. Didn't need to touch that drug. And the Contin delivery system was already being used for morphine sulfate, for MS Contin. So all you did was wrap a coating around the outside at 80 milligrams, but you needed 7 years of no one else competing with you and selling it at $1 a milligram. If you were getting it from a pharmacy, it was $80 a pill when it first rolled out. Well, they made $13 billion. What a bait. $13 billion. And then when the shit hit the fan and they killed almost 1 million people, well, they had to give some of that money back, didn't they? Just a little bit over half. So two-tier justice system, you kill 900,000 people, right? Enslave a nation of young men, destroy the fabric of a country, and in the process, we'll let you keep $6 billion. Why not? I mean, your name's on libraries, for God's sakes. How much money did you donate to the Guggenheim? It's a little bit of justice that every single place that they ever donated pulled their names off the side of the building. In the Guggenheim, protesters went in there and dropped syringes and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, the Sackler family name is not really cool anymore. But if you're allowed to just declare bankruptcy and keep $6 billion in the process, I say take it all back. Make them poor, and let's see how they do with the two-tier justice system. Let's see how they like it when you need a public friggin' defender. I married an attorney once. She was representing me in my bank robbery cases. You wouldn't believe what it's like when you have an attorney that gives a crap about you. I remember once we were sitting and we were filing all this paperwork, and every 4 days I was back in court and we're filing this motion and that motion. And I said, what the hell are we doing? And she said, we're trying to get the interview that you did thrown out. And I said, what did I say in the interview that hurt me? I mean, I was in there saying, no, I'm not answering that question. And then I would talk to him for a while and I'd go, no, I'm not answering that question. I said, what the hell am I doing that we need thrown out? She said, nothing. I said, I'm lost. She said, we're trying to let him know that we're going to fight them on every single thing that happens between now and the time that you decide to plead guilty. It's going to make it go smoother. You think public defenders are doing that for people? The next time I went in there, I had a public defender. Couldn't afford to pay for my own attorney anymore. So I had a public defender. I was, of course, being prosecuted under my real name, which was Brett. And when we got in there, the guy goes, well, Brent. And I thought, there you go. A public defender doesn't know my name. I saw him twice before I went to court. That's the two-tiered system, folks. It's a meat grinder, churning out people, sending as many folks to prison as they possibly can for the prison industrial complex. Once again, a little less than 5% of the planet's population, but more than a quarter of the incarcerated people, right? 46% of all guns owned by civilians is in the United States of America. And I'm all about the Second Amendment. I think that we should do what we can so that tyranny does not thrive. But tyranny comes from the government. And if you don't think there's tyranny right now, you're living in a different world than I was. For real. There is no nanny state on planet Earth like the United States. They decide what your kids read. They decide everything at this point, right? In fact, they passed laws that said things like a teacher can call your son, whose name is Mark, Mary, for the entire school year and allow your kid to wear a bra, right, and change their gender without telling the parents. If you think that's okay, okay. I don't. You can hate me for that. By the way, I had a child who wanted to live in the opposite gender, and I never busted that child's chops a bit. So for those of you who think I'm a Neanderthal, I'm not. And then one day the child said to me, you've never given me an opinion. And I said, are you asking for it? Because I'll give it to you. I'm supporting you, but if you really want my opinion, I'll give it to you. My child detransitioned and is now one of the happiest women you'd ever meet. She did it on Father's Day, by the way. She announced to the world on Father's Day that she was no longer going to be living as the opposite gender. But I would have supported her until the end of her life if that's really what she wanted to do. If she wanted to be a he, I was going to do that. But the fact that the school system was pressuring her into it kind of made me vomit in my mouth a little bit. I can't tell you how happy I am in a developing country. I take oxycodone every day and hate it. I have debilitating pain and can't get out of bed if I don't. I only take a quarter of my dose because I'm afraid of getting addicted. Barely touches the pain. Well, if you're taking a quarter of your dose, it will barely touch the pain. You need to talk to your doctor, please. Communicate with your doctor. Tell your doctor why you're scared, because I'll tell you something. I get this question more than any question that I get on the lifeboat. I'm not telling anyone who is in pain not to take pain medication. You have a mu receptor in your body for a reason, right? God put the mu receptor in there so that an opioid can go in there and turn the key and allow you to get relief. If you have to be addicted to either pain or pain medication, I would suggest dependency every time. I'm not a doctor. Talk to yours. Pain sucks. Pain sucks. If you're taking the prescription the way it's written on the bottle, I don't think you have a problem. The people that I work with who have a problem get a 30-day supply and go through it in 6 days. I would get a 30-day supply and I would go through it in a week. And they were giving me 1280s a day. My addiction was my fault. But without the Sacklers, my addiction would have taken a completely different turn. I promise you that. When my addiction went from this to that, it was when a doctor was legally giving me 12 OxyContin 80s a day. I don't blame the Sackler family for that. I don't. I blame them for killing 900,000 people. I do. I blame them for the fact that everybody who's going to die in America today is going to buy one of their fake pills because the demand for their real pill has driven this entire epidemic. But there's a two-tiered system. None of those people are going to do time. And if you look at the entire case, there actually were 2 guys in the Sackler company that went to prison. Do you think they were executives? Because they weren't. No, they were salespeople. The executives, they're part of that class that don't go to prison. If you got enough money, people, A friend of mine used to say, life's a shit sandwich. And the more bread you got, the less shit you're going to taste. And sadly, that is the world that we live in. It was my son's kindergarten orientation yesterday. I'm grateful I live in Florida. Our Department of Education is not like other states. Charter schools and school choice and parental rights. I'm with you, 100%. The ability for people to choose what school their kids go to, nobody would buy a Yugo if it was on the market today. Nobody would. Why? Because it was a terrible automobile, right? It was a horrible automobile. If you allow companies to compete, the better company will usually win out. Schools don't have to compete, and that's a problem. Let parents take a voucher for how much their kids' education is worth and take their kids to the schools that are the best, and the rest of the schools will step up and start doing better. I'll lose some subs for that. And you know what? Don't let the door catch you on the way out. I'm all about pruning, people. I am all about pruning. Yeah, Renee B says, lost again. It's okay to consult another doctor to hear their opinion. People, if you do not communicate with your doctor and tell them everything that is going on with you, same with your lawyer, then you're not going to get out of it what you're trying to get out of it. I used to say this all the time when I was a criminal. There are two people on planet Earth you don't lie to, your doctor and your lawyer. Nowadays, I would like to believe that there is nobody on earth I will lie to. But that's not how I lived for the first 46 years of my life. In fact, lying is the fruit of addiction. And I spent way too much of my life addicted. John, good to see you. Glad you're here. I'm not trying to be a killjoy, people. I'm really not. But you know something? Unfortunately, if you want to have a successful channel, you don't talk about things that are controversial. And if you don't talk about things that are controversial, then we don't get people's minds stimulated toward things. If ever there is going to be a change in the two-tiered system, it's not going to be the top tier that changes it. Does that make sense? The elite class has no reason to change what's happening. They're in the winning team, right? If there's going to be a change of any kind, it's going to be the bottom tier that does the change. Just like if we're going to win the war on drugs, we're not going to win it from the supply side. We're going to win it from the demand side. I talk to parents all the time that say, you know what, you can't raise a drug-free kid in this environment. Oh, you can. I promise you can. I promise you can. Talk to your kids about drugs all the time. You can absolutely raise a drug-free child in this environment. And if every parent said, I can't win the war on drugs, I know that, but I'm going to win this battle. This battle, my kid's not going to be an addict, right? As a society, we go, not my kid, not my kid. My kid would never do that. Not my kid. It's the battle cry. It has been since the late 1960s. Start saying not my kid while gritting your teeth. Same sentence, different result. Not my kid. Say it like Dirty Harry would. And then do whatever you got to do to raise a drug-free kid. Take the door off of his bedroom. Take the door off the bathroom. You do whatever you got to do to raise a drug-free kid. And it starts by not lying to him about anything. Teach them about every drug. And don't tell them that it's going to make them grow horns or that they're going to get gynecomastia. Smoke 2 joints, you're going to develop breast tissue. Don't lie to them. Tell them the truth. Amazing things will happen. But if every parent won the war or the battle, then the war would be won. Because if we're going to win it, here's the deal. The people that are running the drugs across the border, one backpack will buy an entire family a home that they can live in for the rest of eternity. You think people aren't going to risk 5 years in prison for that? Everyone you arrest, there's a kid waiting behind them to take the backpack. And I don't blame them. I'm sorry, I don't. It's not their fault. It's the United States' fault. We create the demand and then we get pissed off at the people that supply it. Right? The Sacklers create the demand. And now we're pissed off at the Mexicans, right? And the cartels who are supplying it. They're dirtbags, don't get me wrong. But if we're going to win the war on drugs, we're going to win it from the demand side. You want to see drug dealers stop selling dope? Have a bunch of people that don't buy it. You got a guy sitting on 1,500 fentanyl pills. He's going to end up eating them out of depression when he can't sell them. And if you believe that this is about making money, then number one, you've never listened to anything I've said. But I'm telling you right now that I had somebody reach out to me and tell me that they could get fake Percocet 30s, the M30s that are killing people. They live in the Philadelphia area and they're paying 50 cents a pill. You do the math. That pill is coming across the Mexican border, which means the supplier already got paid on it. Now it has to get smuggled. The person that got it across the border got paid. Now it has to get smuggled from there all the way to Philadelphia. That person has to get paid. Then it goes to a dealer who's going to sell it to a street level dealer. It's gone through 5 hands, and you're selling it for 50 cents a piece? No chance. No chance. This isn't about making money. It's about killing people. If your product kills people, you make the next batch weaker. Every consecutive batch is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. You understand? That doesn't make sense. You don't want your client base dying, especially if they have to buy your product 4 times a day. You only need, right, 4 or 5 dozen of them to make a fortune. You don't kill them off. But the number 1 cause of death in America is drug overdose. 2-tiered system. We just passed a new law on fentanyl, and everyone's going, woo-hoo-hoo! You know who's going to be punished? Huh? The end user is the only person that's going to get punished by that. The people that are making this stuff, they're not going to get punished. The people that are shipping all of the precursors to Mexico, they're not going to get punished. The big level dealers, they're not going to get punished. It's going to be the guy addicted on the street. They're going to get mandatory minimums of 10 years. If anybody gets caught with over, 25 or 35 pills, guess who that is? You think they're buying pills 4 at a time at 50 cents a whack? To get them at 50 cents a whack, you're going to have to buy 50 of them, which makes you instantly eligible for 10-year mandatory minimums. Well, that'll fix the problem. Knee-jerk reactions. The United States is famous for it. And you know what? I'm gritting my teeth. Elizabeth Grundy, I would be more than happy to talk to your son if he'd be willing to talk to me. And I don't judge anybody. If you've ever been one of the people that I've reached out to, I judge nobody. I don't have a position to judge somebody. I've done more wrong than all of you combined. But I'll tell you what, I got a PhD in dope. And I got a PhD in how to quit it.
I've done a lot of wrong.
What's that?
I've done a lot of wrong.
I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the people in the chat. Johnny Scoville could give me a run for the money. I promise you. No, but I find our government does kill them off. Sadly, a safe supply happens. Yeah, you know what? No, but I find our government does kill them off. Sadly, a safe supply happens. They do a bust, and in comes the supplies that are killing people off. Yeah, the government helps with free naproxen too. Here's another thing. Once we got Narcan strong enough, because the original Narcan is about 1/5 of the strength of the Narcan that's on the street now, because you're not treating heroin overdoses, which were very easy to treat, right? Diacetylmorphine is morphine with 1 molecule change so that it passes the blood-brain barrier easier. So easy to bring people back from the dead, even without Narcan. It's very easy to save a heroin overdose if you catch it as they're overdosing. So they had to up the strength, and they made it into a nasal spray so that you didn't have to learn how to inject it. Once they started to save people with that, they started adding xylazine to the drug, because Narcan doesn't work on xylazine, which is kind of like a benzodiazepine, but one built for a horse or for a cow. Equine and bovine benzos. It's terrifying. It's a tranquilizer made for horses and cows. And if you miss, that's a term meaning that you go to shoot it in the vein and you have infiltration. Some of the liquid doesn't go into the vein. Junkies call it missing. If you miss, it just rots your skin away, right? There are people getting limbs amputated on a daily basis. I cannot believe that I made 1 hour with this internet service. I'm sorry that I did not interact more with the crowd today. Come by tomorrow morning. We're doing beautiful things, and I smile a hell of a lot more in the morning. But every once in a while, people, these kind of conversations have to happen, right? Every once in a while, it has to happen. Why is Narcan expensive? I saw it at Walmart today for $45. Because we live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And when there is a demand for something, people will always jack up the price. After Hurricane Katrina, Home Depot tripled their price of plywood. Why? Well, because you can, and because tons of people need it. People are so afraid of their kids overdosing, they'll happily pay $45 for it. I'm shocked it isn't more than that. It's not expensive to make. There are cities across the country that give it away. But, you know, if you can play on the fears of somebody, it's the easiest way to sell something between now and the next time I see you. I know it isn't going to be easy. This wasn't a fun message, but put a little love in your heart. And if you hear somebody start talking about whether or not there's a two-tiered justice system, maybe think about what we talked about today. System's broken. If it's going to get fixed, it ain't going to get fixed by the elites. And I'll tell you what, you could have a revolution in that country without firing a gun. It's a simple battle cry. No incumbents. Do not vote for anybody that has ever been in office. Don't reelect anybody. If we were to take the government, throw them out, and start electing teachers, plumbers, right, bricklayers, that's what built the country in the first place. Seems like we did a hell of a job back then. Hasn't gone too well since. Maybe we need to kick politicians out of office, huh? May as well use crocodile. You know what, Tara? They busted a place in Atlanta recently that had enough precursor in a storage facility to make enough crocodile for about 9 cities. It's coming soon to a city near you. Bank on it. Between now and the next time I see you, reach out and try to put a little love in your heart. We'll see you tomorrow, people. I'm Tommy. Bye-bye. By the way, I love you.